There's a man sitting on the floor of his garage. It's late. The house is quiet. His wife went to bed an hour ago, not before mentioning gently that a new one is $60 at the hardware store. Here, in front of him, spread across an old towel or the parts of something broken. A radio, a drill, a clock, it doesn't matter. There's a cup of coffee next to him that went cold an hour ago.
What matters is the look on his face. He is not frustrated. He's not defeated. He is completely, utterly focused. That look, quiet, determined, slightly unreachable, is what this video is about.
Because what is happening in that garage is not really about fixing an object. It never was. Hey, if you recognize that man, stick around. By the end of this, you will understand yourself or someone you love in a way you never quite had words for before. Let's start at the very beginning, which for a lot of you was probably a childhood bedroom floor covered in the pieces of something you were definitely not supposed to take apart. Sound familiar? Research on curiosity-driven behavior in children found that kids who disassemble objects, toys, radios, clocks, aren't being destructive. They are trying to understand systems. And here's the key thing, that instinct doesn't disappear when you grow up. It just gets a toolbox and a YouTube account. Here's the core difference between a fixer and everyone else. When most people see something broken, they see an ending. The fixer sees the start of an interesting problem. It's like your brain is running a different operating system. Where others get the trash prompt, you get a loading bar that says, I can probably sort this out. And look, I get that this comes with side effects. Like the fact that you have, let's be honest, at least one broken thing at home right now that you refuse to throw away because I just need an afternoon and the right screwdriver. Mine was a stand mixer that lived in the corner of my kitchen for 8 months. My partner named it Gerald. But here's what Gerald actually represents. The fact that we keep these objects, circle back to them, feel something when we finally fix them, that is not quirky. That is a very specific psychological profile, and it says a lot about who we are. People who haven't caught the repair bug often assume it is a financial decision. Oh, you fix things to save money. And sure, sometimes that's a bonus, but let me tell you, that is almost never the real reason. A survey by the Repair Cafe Foundation found that across thousands of participants, the #1 motivation for repairing objects was not cost saving. It was the satisfaction of the repair itself, the accomplishment, the feeling of having done something real with your hands. And that word real is doing a lot of heavy lifting in modern life, isn't it? Think about what most of us do all day. We send emails that get buried. We join meetings that produce other meetings. We move things across dashboards, and by 5 p.m., sound familiar? We've somehow been very busy while also doing absolutely nothing you could point at. But when you repair something, reality changes in front of your eyes. There is a before, there is an after. You can hold it up and say, I did that. That is finished, that is done. Psychologists call this the IKEA effect. We value things more when we've worked on them ourselves. But repairing goes further than assembling. You didn't just build something, you brought it back from the dead. You are basically a mechanic necromancer, no cape required. But here's what nobody talks about. What is actually happening inside the brain while you're doing it? Here's something the comment sections of the internet figured out long before researchers caught up. Fixing things is meditative. And this isn't just people being poetic, there is real psychology behind it. A study on flow states, that mental zone where you are fully absorbed and time just disappears, found that hands-on problem solving is one of the most reliable ways to enter that state. You need just enough challenge to stay engaged, and just enough skill to make progress. Repairing hits that sweet spot almost perfectly. So what actually happens in your brain? Your brain goes quiet, the emails don't exist, the news doesn't exist. There's just the object, the problem, and you. A lot of people describe it as the most calm they feel all week, which is honestly a bit sad if you think about it too hard, so let's not. Let's just appreciate that you've accidentally invented your own mental health routine, and it comes with the added bonus of a working toaster. Here is something worth paying attention to, though. Notice when people reach for repair. It is rarely when life is going smoothly. It is when something else is broken, a job situation, a financial stretch, a loss they can't talk about yet. The garage becomes the place where a man who can't control much right now can control at least this one thing. That is not escapism, that is coping, and it is one of the healthiest versions of it. Now, here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because this mindset, this refusal to give up on broken things, doesn't stay in the garage. Here's the thing nobody tells you about spending years fixing broken objects. It doesn't stay contained to objects. The logic seeps out. It gets into how you think about work, about people, about situations everyone else has already written off as a lost cause. Once your brain learns that broken doesn't mean worthless, it starts applying that to everything, on relationships, on people, on the things others gave up on years ago. And who does that look like in practice? Fixers are often the friends who don't give up on people easily. They're still trying to understand the difficult colleague when everyone else is checked out. Still working through the rough patch when walking away would be easier? It's the same mental reflex. Look at the broken thing, see the potential, ask, what would it take to make this work? There's a word for that. It's loyalty, not the bumper sticker version, the real kind, the kind that costs something. People who fix things carry that same instinct into every commitment they make. And that's beautiful. It genuinely is. Although, and this is the nuance worth sitting with, sometimes it can also be a trap, because not everything can be fixed. Not every relationship, not every situation. The same wiring that makes you loyal can make you stay long past the point when letting go was the right call. But you already knew that. Let's talk about planned obsolescence for a second, because fixers tend to have feelings about this. Why does your grandparents' refrigerator still run perfectly while yours is already making a sound it definitely wasn't making 6 months ago? It is not bad luck. Products have been deliberately engineered to fail. And on some level, fixers have always sensed this, that the modern deal of buy cheap, break fast, buy again is not progress, it's a trap. A study on consumer behavior found that people who self-identify as repairers score significantly higher on anti-consumerist values. They trust products less. They trust marketing less. Newer does not automatically mean better, and they have always known it. And honestly, they're not wrong. There's a reason vintage appliances, hand tools, and older cars have entire passionate communities built around them. Durability used to be a feature, not a happy accident. Your grandfather's drill press is still running. Your wireless earbuds lasted 14 months. Draw your own conclusions. So where did that skepticism come from? A lot of people learned it in garages. Watching someone older, a father, a grandfather, quietly refuse to throw things away, not making a speech about it, just doing it, handing over a wrench without much explanation, showing, not telling, that broken things were worth your Saturday. For a lot of American men especially, that garage is one of the clearest memories they have of their fathers. Not what he said, what he did, the patience of it, the focus. The refusal to give up on something just because it was easier to replace it, that lesson doesn't leave you. It becomes part of how you see everything. So here's what we've actually been talking about this whole time. Not screwdrivers, not the 7 broken things in your drawer you are absolutely going to get to eventually. A worldview. One that says things have value beyond their surface condition. Broken doesn't mean worthless. And underneath all of it, the real engine is a quiet, stubborn refusal to feel helpless. Every time you fix something, you are proving something to yourself. I can handle this. I am not at the mercy of things I don't understand. In a world that can feel very large and very fast and very indifferent, that's not nothing. That's actually everything. So next time someone gives you a look for keeping a broken lamp or spending a Saturday on something that costs $30 new, just smile. You're not just fixing an object, you're practicing a philosophy. And Gerald, the stand mixer, he made the best birthday cake we've had in years.